You've got to shoot this bit, Margaret! You've got to shoot it!
9 o'clock in the morning, 11:27, 12:15, Chevalier, Bourg-Saint-Maurice, Montgenèvre, Brussels, Paris, Lille, Cologne in Austria, proper knives and forks, china plates, bedspread, great scenery, and it's not even expensive.
Oh, Dan, I'm not surprised you're not married.
But you're still looking buff from that.
So, welcome to the Whiteout Podcast. I'm Dom, I'm publisher at In the Snow, and I'm here with my trusty friend and colleague, Rob Stewart. How are you?
Oh, yeah. I'm very good, Dom. I mean, we've just been out together in the Alps, haven't we? In Lake Louise, testing skis all this week. So
we've seen every weather format, haven't we? We've seen snow, we've seen sun, we've seen, unfortunately, a little bit of rain.
Definitely. It was an incredible transformation. Yeah, the good news is the snow above kind of 1,500 meters is good. There's plenty of the season left.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, yes, this week's podcast is all about getting to the Alps and how you get to the Alps, everything other than flying, because I think most people are pretty adept at flying. We're going to talk about driving to the Alps with an electric car. We're talking about going by coach. And we're going to get our trusty friend from Snow Carbon in Dan Elkin to talk about how to get there by train. Well, just before we get headlong into that, Rob, time to mention today's sponsors, Ski Independence and Canada's Alberta. The team at Ski Independence have been sending customers to Alberta ski resorts for almost 30 years. With oodles of personal experience, they know all about the best places to stay, the best travel options, and everything in between. From Banff's best après-ski locations to breathtaking scenery at Lake Louise, or how to get the best out of a multi-centre itinerary. They highly recommend road tripping up the spectacular Icefields Parkway between Lake Louise and Jasper for an experience like no other. And I can second that. Visit ski-i.com/Alberta to find out more about booking Canada's Alberta with tailor-made specialists, Ski Independence. Driving to the Alps by electric car, that's the first thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's driving to the Alps. I suppose it's one thing driving to the Alps, and I've done it many times over the years. But driving to the Alps on, electricity in an electric car, it slightly concerns me. So should it though? Should it?
Well, I mean, if I've been doing it for, I think it's about a decade. I've been driving to the Alps in an all-electric car, and I still am now. And I think that sort of concern, or as they call it, range anxiety, it does it goes. And I have to say, I don't even consider a journey now. I literally leave it to the car. I jump in and I don't even consider where I'm going to charge or where I'm going to stop. So I think it's something that you could embrace, Rob.
It's a long journey, let's face it, down to the Alps for most people.
Yeah.
And how can you be sure that you're going to be able to charge your vehicle? I mean, I suppose that's the first question that I would have.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost no different to ask that than asking, how do you know you can be sure where to get petrol? I mean, we don't generally drive until the light comes on and suddenly you're down to your last teaspoon of petrol and you need fuel and you're thinking, right, where am I going to get it? I guess subconsciously we've all been brought up decades of driving and getting to the point where you've got roughly about a quarter of a tank left and you start thinking, right, probably have to stop soon and get some fuel. And it's exactly the same in the electric cars. In fact, more sophisticated, because in general, when you put your destination in, the car will plot the route and it'll plot the charging point and say, right, we're going to be doing these 2 or 3 or 4 charges. This is where we're going to be doing them. And so, in fact, it's actually even simpler than it is with a petrol car. And it's a case of trusting that process. You can start to get a bit smarter and think, you know what, I don't think I'm going to need to charge there. I think I can get on to the next charger. For somebody who's just adopting it, I think trust the process.
So you say, well, you are saying there are a lot of chargers, but I'm just going to add to that question, and that is chargers for all electric vehicles as well. I mean, does that come into it if you've got, say, you haven't got a Tesla for example?
I mean,
that's changed a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly 8 to 10 years ago, when I started doing it in a Tesla, I wouldn't have done it in another form of electric car. Tesla superchargers were well spaced, they were plentiful, and there was very few people doing it. So we could easily pull into a Tesla supercharge station, fill up and carry on, and it was very, very simple. Had I been doing that in an alternative electric car, which there were very few of at that time, I would have been terrified. But now,
I did hear some stories about that.
Yeah.
And stories that didn't always work out particularly well.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I think now, you know, I monitor it pretty closely. I have 2 electric cars, one that's a Tesla and one that's not. And I'm pretty sure that I would be slightly more anxious in something other than a Tesla, but I still think I'd be pretty comfortable doing it. Pretty much all the fuel stations, all the big fuel stations have alternative charging for electric vehicles, fast charging, sophisticated fast charging. And a lot of the Tesla superchargers are opened up to non-Tesla cars.
Right. Which I
So,
was going to ask you about, because I've
yeah.
heard that has now happened, that the Tesla superchargers are opened up.
Yeah, absolutely. Not every Tesla supercharger has been opened up, but a lot have.
Okay.
Yeah, it's expanded very quickly, and it's still expanding very quickly.
And what about the time you spend charging then normally, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. And, you know, when I very first started, it was the first thing you could see somebody gently ambling over towards you, and you'd sort of think, I know what your first question is going to be. And that is, how long is that taking to charge? And usually these charges are pretty quick. And usually if you're pulling in at about a quarter of a tank, and maybe a little less, you're usually looking at about 30 minutes to charge, which isn't a great deal. I jump out of the car, I plug it in while everyone else is going, are we stopping? I need the toilet. I want a drink. I could do with something to eat. So the first sort of 5 minutes is spent everybody getting their shoes on, putting the iPads away, getting out of the car. By the time you've walked to the service station, everybody's gone to the loo, everybody's had a drink, you've brought the snacks through once it, and you've got back to the car. The car is almost ready, 20 to 30 minutes. I've never been sitting there thinking, come on, I need to get on. It just doesn't feel like that.
And you sort of about incentivize then, what sort of cost are we talking about to charge the vehicle each time?
So I am more experienced on the Tesla network, and I spent 4 or 5 years with free charging, which was obviously really lovely, driving down with a family of 4 people down through to the Alps at zero cost, apart from the 100 grand that it cost to buy the car, obviously. On average, a full charge is around about 20 odd quid. It does fluctuate. It's a bit like EasyJet seat pricing or flight seat pricing, that if you go to a busier charger, it's slightly more expensive. And if you go to a quieter charger, it's slightly cheaper. But around 20 quid for around 3/4 of a tank-ish. I drove down to Aosta over New Year. I left home with a full charge. I drove a couple of hours down to Folkestone. I fully charged there at about 18, 20 quid. I then got into France, did a couple of 100 miles, and checked into a hotel because we decided to leave late in the evening. I got a free charger at that hotel, so I got a free tank of fuel overnight. I woke up with a full charge, and then I only had 2 more charges at around about 20, 23 pounds before I got to Italy. So I got the whole way down to Aosta on about 60 quid. So 4 of us in the car, you can't complain.
No, less than a tank of diesel.
Yeah, significantly less than running a fuel-driven car down to the Alps for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, it is impressive compared to any other sort of method of transport. You stayed in a hotel, but then again, if I was driving down, I've got a diesel vehicle. It's pretty economical diesel vehicle, but I would probably choose to stay at a hotel as well. So it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you less for sure.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable part of the thing. Stopping off at a hotel is always nice. I think it adds to the adventure a little bit. And, we tend to take in the journey as a bit of a part of the holiday, really, to see new towns and villages and stuff like that. And I mean, we have driven it in one hit. We drove back from Aosta to London in one hit. We don't tend to tank along. We tend to stick to around 80, 85 or 130 or whatever the kilometers is that you're supposed to do. And it's a nice part of the journey.
It's a nice journey.
It is.
The French, if you're going to the French Alps, which most people do when they drive, the roads are fantastic. You do pay for the tolls, of course, as well, which does add to that. But generally, the driving experience is smooth. The roads are good and well maintained, and that speed limit is 130 normally, like you say, unless the weather's bad, they do reduce it, don't they, to 110. Cruise down the motorway, it doesn't feel like you're going, because there's not a lot of traffic on those roads compared to, say, most UK motorways.
Absolutely.
So it's quite easy driving, isn't it? It doesn't take the energy levels that you use for driving on those French roads. I always find it's a much easier journey. You don't feel as tired because of that when you arrive at your destination, even though you might be driving a long way. It is easier. So Dom, what are your top tips then for actually taking an electric vehicle down to the Alps?
Well, obviously, there's a big cost advantage. Pack as much as you like. So massive benefits, especially on ski holidays when the kids are all wanting to take extra stuff, another pair of skis. Maybe you want to take a couple of pairs of skis just for yourself. So yeah, keep on packing that car. Be canny if you are staying somewhere overnight. Look for the free chargers because they or chargers very nearby where you're staying over, because then obviously you're not sitting about waiting for a charge. And do trust the process. I say that sort of loosely. Once you get used to driving an electric car, you can kind of outsmart it a little bit. I've often found myself driving down a motorway thinking, really, I'm sure I don't need to stop for a charge quite yet. If you stop the navigation and then re-input your destination and restart it, quite often it'll catch up and it'll go, actually, you don't need to charge just yet. You can go another 100 odd miles. So that comes with a bit of experience, but yeah, for sure. Trust the process. These cars are super smart. They're getting better. The more they hoover up data, the more they can deliver you a great driving experience. And yeah, keep a lookout for those free chargers because there are plenty around.
Great work, Tom. That's really interesting. And actually, I think it's tempted me into maybe looking at an electric car for my next. I mean, I always said, to be honest, this would be the last non-electric car I would have when I bought that vehicle.
Yeah.
And I guess now, things have come on such a long way that the whole process is just easier than what it was. You were a pioneer, I think it's fair to say, in electric vehicle driving, and also certainly taking that electric car down to the Alps. I'm sure there was very little of that going on when you started nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But now you probably see a lot of British electric cars on the road driving through to the French Alps, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. That last drive down, there was many electric cars of all manufacturers, right from Porsche through to VW and Renault. And it was great to see such a large number of British electric vehicles charging on our way down. So yeah, absolutely. Go electric. Go electric.
Brilliant. Shout out today to our friends at the Snow Centre Hemel Hempstead, London's closest indoor real snow slope and the largest trainer slope in the country, with a team of highly qualified ski and snowboard instructors running private and group lessons for all ages, a huge 160-metre main slope, family snow fun with the Ringo slide and an alpine theme bar and restaurant. There is something for everyone. Visit thesnowcentre.com for more.
So, Rob, of course, the other way of getting to the Alps is by train. And we know we've got a colleague, haven't we, who's an absolute expert in this area, is Dan Elkin from Snow Carbon. I managed to track this man down. I might as well have been trying to get a hold of the Queen or the Prince or the King or whoever it might be. What do you think?
Getting hold of Daniel, I mean, he's always somewhere on a train. But I guess these days it is a little bit easier even to get hold of Daniel on a train somewhere in the Alps.
So welcome today, Dan Elkin, Snow Carbon. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very well. I've just had a lovely journey from France through to Austria.
You're showing off to us, Dan.
Well, there was a lot to show off about. There was some great scenery and there was restaurant carriages on the train. So what was there not to love? Proper knives and forks, china plates, and it's not even expensive.
I've got a little quick tip, actually, for Swiss trains. Because if you book a second-class ticket on a Swiss train that has a restaurant carriage on it, quite a lot of them do, and you can check that on the SBB app right before you book the ticket. The restaurant carriage is always between first and second class, and you just walk on from second class into the restaurant carriage, sit down at a tablecloth table with a knife and fork and a little glass of wine. You can order beef bourguignon, steak and chips, and a little glass of red wine, and sit there with a second class ticket and enjoy the meal as the scenery goes by. Right, it's fantastic.
That's a good tip indeed.
So getting into the thick of it, Dan, we've been talking about the different ways in which we can get down to the Alps, and we thought, what better expert can we get in than you when it comes to getting down to the Alps by train? So
no, you didn't think that, but I appreciate you saying so.
So Dan, quick question from me. My opening question, genuinely, how easy is it to go skiing by train, or am I restricted just to the few resorts that I've been to by train?
It is pretty straightforward. I mean, there used to be a direct ski train that has stopped for the last season, and you need to go via Lille. Okay. But that was as easy as it could be. I mean, that was get on at St. Pancras, get off at the foot of the mountains in the Tarentaise near 17 different resorts that train alone accesses. Now, if you're happy to go to Paris on a Eurostar, switch stations, not very difficult. You can do it on the RER. You'd get a taxi, and then you get on a TGV, nice and comfortable. You've got access to even more French resorts, loads. And you can also go onwards into Switzerland. You can get to Austria by changing in Brussels and Cologne and get on a sleeper train. So there are a lot of decent options.
Sounds good.
Dan, I've got a question. Can you give us a couple of examples maybe of some of the sort of more popular resorts in the Alps that you can get to by train? So when I mean example, I mean like an itinerary.
Yeah. The better options are at weekends, I have to say, for some resorts. So Val d'Isère, the more direct options are on a Saturday. You could take the Eurostar Snow. You leave London at 9 o'clock in the morning. You get to Lille, 11:27. You change there, get a TGV at 12:15, and you would be in Bourg-Saint-Maurice at 6:20. Wow, and then you're 45 minutes from Val d'Isère, from Tignes, etc.
That is good. That is good.
Bad, right? It's not bad. You can get, if you were going to Le Grand Bornand, Le Clusaz, that's Annecy, get a Eurostar at 9:30, change in Paris, you'd be at Annecy 4:30. That's 35 minutes from those resorts. Similarly, you know, places like Montgenèvre, Serre-Chevalier, they're 4.5 hours from Paris. You've got Morzine, Cluse, Avoriaz. That's about 5 hours from Paris. So there's loads and loads of different options. And, you know, it always seems like it's a long journey compared to flying, but actually it's really not, as maybe we'll talk about later.
You can anticipate the question, can't you, Dan?
I'm a psychic.
But presumably there are resorts that aren't as well connected by train. Do you see that changing? Have you seen changes in the
definitely
45 years that you've been doing this?
I mean, Italian resorts are a lot more difficult to get to by train, apart from places like Sauzi and Sestriere and Bardonecchia, which are simple. But a lot of the Italian Alps is further. There just aren't the kind of direct trains going down that way. And it's a shame. And I think that is, you know, I imagine that's going to change. I imagine that train companies, you know, they're aware of the demand for train travel, and it's really growing. A lot more people want to do this. Sometimes it just takes time for the train companies to build more trains, get on board, put direct routes on. But I think they will. And I think also people will just realize that if you have to change a couple of times, is it the biggest deal? Get your luggage off one train, switch platforms, get on another.
Not at all. I remember when I did it, the trickiest bit, the hardest bit, shall I tell you, on the way back, all the lifts were broken in the London trains. And my kids were little, and I was having to carry all this luggage upstairs.
But you're still looking buff from that.
I know, absolutely ripped, unbelievable.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about like the trains down to the Alps, but obviously Paris is quite an interesting one, isn't it, Dan? Because I'm just going to chuck something in there, but you have to change at Paris. Now I've done this in two different ways. I've taken the metro across Paris from Gare du Nord to Gare de Lyon, and I've also taken a taxi. It's a bit of a shame you have to do that, I suppose, in some ways, but
totally. If I was with a group, maybe if I was with a girlfriend who was high maintenance, I'd get a taxi. But actually, the other day, I was traveling down to Grenoble to go to Vaujany and Alpe d'Huez, which is 3 hours from Paris to Grenoble, 3 hours on a TGV. I was going to take the RER, and then I thought the metro. And then I thought, do you know what? I'll just see what it's like if I step outside. Are there taxis waiting? You know, how long will it take in a taxi at this time of day? There were taxis waiting. I put my bags in the taxi. It took 20 minutes. It was 18 euros. I put my little Osmo camera gimbal thing out the window, so I got nice footage of the journey through Paris. So really, really simple. But I totally agree with you. It's a shame that so many journeys require a change in Paris, because there are other ways that train companies could organize this. They could do a lot more, I'm sure, from Lille. And, you know, the whole of the ski industry is like desperate for more train options. And one of the really annoying things is we can't really find answers from train companies. They're not very easy to talk to.
There is a tip there, Dan, isn't there, when you get to Paris? Because I do remember that you can get caught with people trying to get you into a cab that's not a full-on cab and charge you silly money, isn't there? So you do have to be a little careful there.
I have had that experience a number of years ago. Recently, I haven't seen that, but always be on the lookout. There used to be the Rail Europe snow train, which stopped when the financial crisis happened. That used to go from Paris Gare du Nord, so you didn't even have to change station there. Now, why can't they just put more sleeper trains on from that? Plus, that had a disco carriage on with a proper old record player, and people get so drunk they'd wake up in the wrong station. But what's not to like about that?
Well, Dan, if anyone can make that happen, you can.
We need to.
I don't know, but
petition. We need to petition for the disco train. That's what we need to do.
So down at home, I'm a bit laughed at because I'm a bit of a numbers man. So I convert everything from gallons into centimeters to meters to kilometers. What sort of number of people are using the train to get down to resorts now?
I wish I had the stats. Train companies don't really provide them, and Eurostar are always quite opaque, and they give these very broad figures. I do know that if you go down to St Pancras on a Saturday morning, for example, you will see lots of people who are not only taking the more direct services, but also ones that are changing in Paris or other places to go all over the Alps. So that's really encouraging. And at Snow Carbon, I get inquiries from skiers who want to travel by train from much further afield than, if I get inquiries from Scotland, from Cornwall, from Bristol, from Manchester, from Leeds, York, I don't even blink now, whereas that used to be much more of a rarity. Oh, so people are prepared to travel further, which is great. There's a stat that came out of the Listex consumer research that found that there's a big jump in the number of people that want to do it. It's now 12% said they intended to travel by train to the Alps. Now, not all of those will translate into actual journeys. People might find it, that they're not.
I saw that stat as well, Daniel. Important thing about that stat was that that survey asked the same question a few years ago, the intent was a lot lower than 12%. So that says to me that people are really saying now we want to travel by train. And of course, they don't always do that because of various reasons. They might think it's that looks a bit tricky, or maybe it's expensive.
Could be too pricey when they come to book it.
Maybe that's what they think. And of course, in the UK, people look the reputation of the railway companies, the train companies in the UK isn't fantastic. People see that trains are busy, they run very late, they tend to be expensive here in the UK. So I guess, the question is, what would you say to someone to convince them to take the train to the Alps when they kind of don't have always the best experiences here in the UK?
I would say, don't imagine the journey is going to be like sitting for that long on a UK train, because the trains in Europe are a lot more spacious. We've talked about the restaurant carriages that you can have. Even, every TGV's got a decent cafe bar, which is a nice place to stroll down on. And when I organise a holiday for groups of friends, I normally book a big chalet, invite friends of friends. So everyone turns up at St Pancras. There'll be 24 of us. Not everyone knows each other. And the camaraderie and the bonding that happens on that journey is absolutely phenomenal. It would never happen if you fly. You open the bubbles on the Eurostar, and it's part of the holiday. It's such a lovely way to travel. And for families as well, I have seen so many happy families on the train. For some reason, kids just get on with it. They love it. There's always something to do. There's scenery, there's space. It's just a brilliant way to travel. I wouldn't be sitting here, talking about it otherwise if I didn't think and hadn't seen for myself what a great thing it is.
I've traveled with my family, with my daughter at the time, who was probably about 8 years old, something like that, and honestly, that was a very, very chilled out journey.
And you don't have the luggage restrictions.
Yeah.
You know what? To be honest, I relax on any kind of form of transport when you can just kind of, look out the window. It doesn't matter if I'm in the air or on the ground.
Hopefully not when you're driving.
You should see us driving.
Yes.
Moving on.
Don't get in the car with me.
That lift home you offered me is not happening now.
We did allude to the fact earlier on in this conversation, Dan, that you did actually race one of our favoured colleagues to resort where you were on train and he was on a plane, didn't you? And maybe you can give us a little highlight as to how that turned out. And I reminded myself by watching that video, but just maybe for our listeners' sake. So you were on a train, he was on a plane. How did that go?
That's right. Neil English, esteemed ski journalist, who played a brilliant Jeremy Clarkson. Basically, we each had a cameraman with us. We managed to set it up so that we would leave home at the same time. He flew to Geneva and then took a private transfer to Maribel, the destination, the first person to get into the hot tub of a chalet in Maribel.
Yeah.
I could have taken a direct ski train. I didn't. That would have been too easy. I went via Paris. So a Eurostar to Paris, switch of stations by taxi, and then a TGV. Now I thought he might make mincemeat out of me. Especially once he was already kind of, I was still on the Eurostar and he was getting close to the airport and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
And ended up being 35 minutes difference between us, so we've each spent about 8 to 9 hours traveling.
Wow.
He lives in London, I live in London, so it was a fair race. I won't say who won, but with the journey of that much 35 minutes difference, but such a different experience.
Yeah, a stressful experience. Well worth going and watching that. We've got that on our YouTube channel at In the Snow Mag, and I'm sure it's on Snow Carbon somewhere. So Dan, do you want to give us a big plug, because there are lots of places people can go by train. What are your top tips, and where can people find out more information?
Snow Carbon's one of the websites that people can do that. It's an independent guide to how to travel to ski resorts by train. So I've been traveling this way since 1998. I always take photos of the journeys. I always talk to people about their experience, and other skiers, they can send in their own stories of their own journeys to the site. So it's not just what I think, it's what other skiers think about where they've gone, what the journey was like, where they stayed, which is a really good kind of like community of people, information, all helping each other to kind of like work out what are the good places they can go to and what it's like to get there. There's also Ski Flight Free, Ian Martin's site, which has some great stuff on it. Seat 61's a brilliant site just about train travel generally. There's good articles on In the Snow as well. And one of the things I would suggest is we made a rail map of the French resorts, which you can find. Can you see that?
Fantastic.
It's a cube map of where you can get to.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a great map, Daniel. In association with obviously with France Montane
And the Tour de France. That's right. Yeah.
France,
There's
French
also
board, basically.
Yeah, and we're going to do one for Austria. There's a brilliant map called the Rail Map of Europe. That's an amazing map for like just planning journeys wherever you're going. Fantastic inspiration, and really good for planning, because the thing is, what people should realize, it's really important, is that when you go online and you try and research these journeys, if there's 2 trains or more in the journey, sometimes the algorithms that power booking websites like SNCF's website, Rail Europe, Trainline, etc., they will sometimes get confused and not show you the best journey. So you shouldn't just rely on what you find online. Use a map, break the journey down into smaller parts so you can see the different legs, jot them down on a piece of paper if you like, but just make sure you don't only rely on what you see online in your first look.
Fantastic.
Can people find that map online, the France Montane one?
Yes, they can. They can find it on Snow Carbon.
Loads of information. They can find it on Snow Carbon.
Brilliant. Yeah, they can download it for free as a PDF. Yeah, print it out, use it as a bedspread, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, Dan, I'm not surprised you're not married. But anyway, it is so good to talk to you today. Extremely important how busy you are, and to be able to track you down today and get you on the podcast at such late notice.
Much appreciated.
You don't realize how much we appreciate you setting aside.
I would get off a moving train to be on this with you guys. So yeah, no, don't worry about that. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So
next time, Daniel, I'll pick you up in my car, and I can drive you to a railway station close by, looking out the window and staring at the countryside as we go by.
I'll give it a go. I'll try anything.
You should. Everyone that's experienced that in the last 35 years of driving has survived so far. So I think you'll be all right.
Dan, thanks for joining us. And listeners, don't forget to check out snowcarbon.co.uk. Dan, enjoy the rest of your journeys. Very safe journeys throughout the Alps. And I hope you have a great rest of the season.
Appreciate it. Speak soon.
Good to talk.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Daniel. Okay.
So our next form of transport, Rob, is by coach. Yes, Rob, there is coach travel as well. Not something I've ever done before. Something I think you probably know more about than me, but I'm aware of the Snow Express guys and obviously other organizations that used to do some coach travel. What's it like now? Is there much choice? Is there plenty of people doing that?
Well, no, not really. There isn't a lot of choice, which is an issue. I mean, I'd like to mention Snow Express because I think we've obviously been talking about electric vehicles and trains, but people forget it is still possible to take a coach to the Alps from London, but it's definitely, the choice isn't as big as it used to be, and prices have gone up a bit with coach travel, but it is still it's still the most economical way when you look at it all. to reach the French Alps.
Mm.
French Alps, I say, because Snow Express operate to the French Alps only
Yeah.
for skiers and snowboarders. I think one of the reasons for that is the fare includes all your luggage and ski carriage if you want to bring skis.
Yeah.
And it also drops people at the door, so you're not being dropped at somewhere where you've then got to get a transfer. You know, so flight and transfer, whatever that cost is, you look at that, and coach, and you don't have to add all your bags, and the coach ticket doesn't go, now you've got to load up with a bag, or now you've got a bag that's too big, so we're going to overcharge you. Right?
Okay, that's cool.
All of that doesn't happen.
And your ski carriage included as well?
Yeah, no, it is. And okay, like a coach is not, let's be honest, right? A coach is not an eco-friendly vehicle on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you fill that coach with people, which they do on a Friday night going out of London to the French Alps, it becomes your personal carbon footprint will become significantly less than if you traveled by air.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And they've actually, Snow Express has actually formed a new partnership with POW, Protect Our Winters, this year. And they can sort of demonstrate that through what they do. So POW has sort of got behind that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
how long does it take then? I mean, typically, how long is one of those journeys? Do you know?
So the coach leaves London Victoria for a Friday night after work, basically. You would arrive in resort the following morning, like normally around mid-morning. So it travels through the night. So what people tend to do when they arrive in their resort on the Saturday late morning, mid-morning, late morning, is either check in and sleep if they're a bit tired, or, you know, if they're feeling like they've had a bit of a refreshed sleep on the coach, you can go skiing that afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get some time on the slopes. And the other thing is, it actually doesn't depart until 5 o'clock on the following Saturday.
Oh, wow, right.
So you can get an extra day skiing on the Saturday and then get on the coach and go back.
That's pretty neat, isn't it? So you get those extra days skiing, don't you?
You get extra days skiing. Obviously, you know, you're going to get back then on the Sunday morning into London. It takes a bit more time up because the journey is longer than the train or flying. It is a longer journey. There's no doubt about that.
And what about cost? I mean, what kind of money is a return journey on that?
So Snow Express operate a return fare from £179.
Okay.
And
blimey.
Yeah, which is very good, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not always 179. I think it does go around the 200 mark on those sort of busier weeks.
Yeah.
But then when you think that's to resort, all your baggage included, it's good value. And the coach is nice. You know, it's a comfortable coach. It's a good coach. And so I think you'd be surprised who is on that coach. You think, oh, the coach is going to be full of, you know, young kids or something. That's not the case. There's a really wide demographic of people using this coach service.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, sort of savvy skiers that might do a few trips every season, not short of money, but they want to do it efficiently. They want to do it, and they don't mind the coach. They don't mind the coach.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone, right? It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's Snow Express, and I think it is worth mentioning as an alternative, sort of sustainable form of travel. I'm happy. I think I'm happy to say that. And it's running. So the last departure out of London is April the 5th, and then the last one back is April the 13th. So yeah, check that out on snowexpress.co.uk. They have got a page. If you / the-environment, they have got a page on there talking about all the sustainability side and what your carbon footprint is, and all of that sort of thing. So, for example, a return trip from London to Teen with Snow Express and the ferry, including that, uses 24.1 kilo of CO2 per passenger, whilst flying to a resort, and using a transfer is 189.2 kilograms of CO2 per passenger.
Wow.
So it's a significant
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, absolutely. It's
I mean, the
definitely
terrain is lower than that. The train is lower than the Snow Express. If you
yeah,
look at your carbon footprint,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it is lower, but you know it's still, that's a massive difference between the coach and the flying. So
There's a massive benefit of the extra ski days, and obviously it is the best use of sleeping time. Let's face it, when some of us do that sort of 3, 4, 5 o'clock get up to get on an early flight to try and get to ski on the first day, which is always a tough call, it's a very efficient use of sleeping time. If you can sleep on a coach, get on there, knock yourself out,
sure,
go to sleep and wake up in a ski resort. It's blooming
but
efficient use of time.
you don't have to worry about it, do you? I mean, it's not like you're driving a car. You just sit there
Yeah,
and relax. There's no responsibilities,
yeah.
and you get to the ski resort the next day. So yeah, I think it's a good option, and maybe one day what we will see, Dom, is an increase of electric coaches.
Yeah, yeah,
It wants and maybe a return to that sort of form of road travel when the roads are safe and you've got
yeah,
electric vehicles
absolutely.
and it's all very sort of easy and those coaches will improve. I think there is a future in it. I really do.
And of course, you could sit back, relax, and listen to your favourite Whiteout podcast.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like ACDC or something like that. Favorite podcast. I wonder what that would be. Yeah, good point, Dom. I think that's a good idea. You could go through the whole back catalogue of the Whiteout
Yeah,
for those
exactly.
journeys. So I've just got a quick news story, Dom. This week, if people haven't already known this, and it has been covered across some national media channels, but maybe some people still don't know that the Youth Olympics is happening right now in South Korea, and there's some British ski racers that have had some success there. Zach Carrick-Smith is one of those British skiers. Phenomenal success.
Unbelievable.
He's won, I think, I just got to double check this actually, but he's won 2 gold medals and a silver,
Wow.
downhill, super G, and now slalom. Right. So the first medal he won was a gold, first gold medal. Well, actually, officially, the first medal ever won by a British skier in a Winter Olympic alpine event. Okay?
Wow.
First
Incredible.
medal officially. I sort of always would reference Alan Baxter's bronze medal in Salt Lake City 2002 as a medal, but officially, he still does not have that medal. So this is the first medal ever won by a British athlete in an alpine Olympic event. But it was also a gold, and then he went on to win a silver, and then he went on to win another gold again. Zach Carrick-Smith, I've met him many times. I've known him since he was a young kid, skied with him quite a few times, and his parents, Phil and Emma, who are good friends. And I'm going to get the pleasure tomorrow to interview Zach. He's still in South Korea, and we're going to ask him exactly how he feels, but a lot more than that. We get some great insight into what his plans are now, how he got to this point, what he's thinking, how excited he is about all this, and what he thinks he can do in the future with going from here.
Great
Golds
stuff.
and a silver.
And we've got that on next week's podcast. So that's one to listen out for when we have that fantastic interview. That's going to be very exciting. I can't wait to see how that goes tomorrow, Rob. Yep. So with that in mind, don't forget to review our podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to it as well, because it's very important to hit that bell so that you can make sure you get the podcast as soon as it comes out. We release a podcast every week, and it really means a lot to us if you can give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. As always, Rob, great to talk to you. What a great week. We've had that special edition of talking about how to get to the Alps by electric car, by coach, and by train. Wonder if there's going to be future methods of transport, sticking me in a capsule and firing me down a tube or something like that. Elon Musk must be onto something like that, surely.
I mean, that's a great idea. You could get to the Alps in about 3 seconds and sort of get splattered against Mont Blanc.
Imagine. Fabulous. I love it. So thanks very much again, Rob. Good to talk to you. Happy skiing. I will be speaking to you in a week's time, and I'll be talking to you from Revelstoke.
Lucky you. In a week's time. Well, I will be in the resort of Crans-Montana in a week's time. So you're in Revelstoke. I'm in Switzerland. Yeah. What a life, eh, Dom? Doing the
tough-
podcast, the White Hat podcast lifestyle.
It's a tough life. Cheers indeed, Rob. Safe
Yep.
journey to you.
Thanks, Dom. You too. Enjoy
Adios. Have a good one.
Mais non, talkie-walkie.
Pretty sure it's called a walkie-talkie, mate.